week's intensity technique is going to be load drop sets. So everyone's favorite technique. It is probably the most well-known. It is probably the most widespread as far as use goes. So honestly, I feel like most people probably have a pretty good handle on what a load drop set actually is, how to perform it, but there are gonna be a few nuances that I feel like most people just do not quite grasp when they try and do it themselves, so we can kind of dive into that today. So, as everyone knows, a load drop set is going to involve taking a set to technical failure and then reducing the load to continue the set beyond that initial point. So you can do it once, you can do it twice, you can do it 3 times, 4, 5, however many times you want. You can continue to reduce that load and keep the set going. There are going to be optimal points though. There's going to be an optimal amount of drops, optimal percentage of load drop as well. So you don't want to be, dropping 90% every single time. So that is one big thing that we want to cover. And there's also going to be optimal methods and variations that you're going to use with load drop sets. So not everything is going to be really capable of handling this type of technique. And again, we can kind of dive into that here in a second. So with the cable easy curl, so we're gonna go to technical failure here. Make sure to keep it nice and strict. And then we hit our failure point, and we're gonna drop the load. So depending on what movement you are doing and also what your specified goal is, you can actually take a quick rest between that drop. It doesn't have to be instantaneous, but for our example here, we're gonna assume that it is an instantaneous drop and you're going right to the next set. And again, let's say that we hit technical failure point, we drop again, and we'll keep it at 2 load drops here for this example. And then we're gonna take this one to technical failure also. So, pretty easy to understand. I feel like most people understand. So with the load reduction I did here though, so I went from 30 pounds to 25 on my first drop. So that's about 20% load reduction, give or take. So in my experience, it's almost universally better to drop load about 20 to 30% whenever you're doing drop sets. If you go from 100 pounds to 95 pounds, probably not gonna make a difference. If you go from 100 pounds to 50 pounds, it's probably offer you a little bit too much leeway and you're gonna get too many reps on that drop. So you want that first set to be obviously to failure, depending on where you're at, but that second drop or that second set that you do, you don't want it to be the same amount of reps typically. You want that to be a decrease in reps from the first set, because that is actually going to increase your effective reps, so the amount of stimulating reps that you're doing, rather than just adding tons of volume in for no reason. So you want those reps that you're doing after that drop to be effective. You want them to be actually counting for something. So another big thing to understand is the variations that are actually going to be supporting the load drop sets. So cable movements, almost universally really applicable for that. Really easy to drop the load, easy to change it. You have a lot of stability within the cable system, a lot of freedom of movement typically, and also you can actually keep that tension on the target muscle a little bit easier with cables than you can with free weights. So there's a lot of good things with cables, and same thing with machines. If you're using a pin-loaded machine, really easy to switch that load and go right back into your next set after that drop. Whenever you get into dumbbells, into plates, barbells, it becomes a lot more difficult to start justifying load drop sets. And the reason for that is because as soon as you start having to move load around, you have to get up out of place, you have to take a plate off of one side, take a plate off, it becomes like a-logistical or unlogistical, whatever that word is. It's not logistical. So the easiest way to do it is, again, changing pins. That's the absolute quickest way to do it. You want to be able to get in, get out, right back into your next set. Even something like a dumbbell press, let's say for example, even the act of kicking that dumbbell into place is inefficient energy. That's wasting energy, whereas that could be directed towards your press, and let's say like a machine press example. So there are a lot of things that you want to take into account whenever you're doing load drop sets, but the biggest thing that I feel like most people miss is the importance of standardizing that rest. So again, if you're changing plates, it's unstandardized rest. Also, you want to make sure that you're using the right modalities for something like a load drop set. So cables, pin-loaded machines, those are the best things typically. And then lastly, you want to make sure that the load changes, the load reductions, are in a good range. So I typically like 20 to 30%, give or take on either end of that a little bit, but you want to make sure that you are pretty close there so that you're not getting too many reps after that drop or not getting too few reps. So load drop sets, most people know them, most people have used them, have a lot of experience with them, but there are nuances that are important to know, so hopefully you were able to learn that in this video.